Hello. Hello. How are we? Good day, everybody. Good day, everyone. Can I go here? Yeah. Why do I feel like this is bad? Hold on, give me a second. Good day, everybody. How are we? How are we feeling today? Happy pandemic day from what? Shoot, what week are we in? Like week 4 now? It was actually officially made a pandemic probably like 2.5 weeks ago, right? Either way, it feels like forever ago because I think we're all just feeling stuck in our own homes. So it's like its own issue. It still looks weird, but I'm sure it's fine. Hello. Time is all blur right now. Do weeks even exist anymore? No, they don't. Weeks do not exist. Absolutely not. Before we get this started, I have to thank thank Chickenators for helping me warm up my voice a little bit this morning. Or this morning, I just woke up like a couple hours ago. Because for those that don't watch my stream normally, I stream like till like 5 in the morning every night now. Why? Don't ask, because I don't know. I can't answer that question. In fact, that may or may not even get into the subject today, which we'll get into in a second. We'll get into in a minute, but before we get there, hi. How are we? How are we doing? Did you guys enjoy the mods show? That's what I call it. I know it's like called behind the streams and stuff like that, but like, it's the mod show. They deserve it. It's theirs. The Modcast. Yeah. Yeah. That's the perfect title. Why wasn't it called that? Yes. It's so good. No, obviously when you hear behind the scenes, you think, "Oh, it's all the stuff that I actually might be interested in, even if, I'm not like a movie buff or like a industry kind of person or something like that, but I'm interested in a lot of the things that happen behind there." So when you hear, then again, behind the streams, it's the same idea. It's what happens in the background. And it does leave a lot of room for wiggle room. So in hindsight, I wouldn't call it the Modcast. While I really, really, really love that name, I wouldn't call it the Modcast because then that puts you in a little pigeonhole corner that says, "Oh, we can only talk about mod stuff and bring in mods in." When in reality now, behind the streams, you can bring in anybody to talk about it because, well, let's be honest, there's a little overlap into this show where even if you don't have a super awesome mod team like a few of us do right here in this channel, you got to do all the stuff yourself. And even if you do have a really awesome mod team, you still got to do a bunch of that stuff yourself because, well, there's only a certain amount of things that other people can do. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of like little tiny itty bitty technical support, like expertise that every streamer has to know. And if they don't know, they better know somebody within immediate distance that can help them with that. And not everybody has that. That's like both the guts, glory, and disaster of being a streamer. Which is basically, you go through so many things as a streamer, but, as somebody who doesn't necessarily know how to do everything, which even somebody like me who has literally gone to school and learned a lot of those things, I still have trouble with, well, pretty much anything server side, with anything like network side, I don't know anything about, which is why we have, a mod team that helps us. Which I say us, it's me, they help me. Specifically, they probably help each other too, but I mean, they do that on their own time. I'm not paying them for that. I'm not paying them for anything. Why? Because they're awesome volunteers. I wish I could, because it's important to talk about. You don't talk about these things because they may go away or they may get mad because you're not paying them. No, it's the truth. It is like it's an important topic. Like, mods are very much volunteers, and in a lot of ways, I think every streamer would love to be able to pay their employees, right? And or have employees, you know. There's that negative of like, oh, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to do all these things. Well, I mean, even with volunteers, you still gotta do all the managerial stuff. In fact, there's been circumstances, and this is exactly good for this topic. There's been circumstances where I've been pretty bad as a manager, both in actual like retail jobs as well as here on stream, and that has caused issues and folds and ripples. Right? Because, like, it doesn't matter. I didn't do anything wrong necessarily to a person, but I also didn't do anything right when the person was in need of some sort of stepping in and managerial stuff, and that became an issue. But with that being said, everybody would like to have, those people that you can have underneath you, and while a lot of people don't like to do business with their friends, understandably, sometimes it's one of those things where it's like, dude, I can give this person a job that I actually enjoy being around and like, and sometimes, like, cordially just want to be friends with and professional with and all these things. Like, it makes sense. You want to be able to pay those people and give them a reason to be there for more than just their kindness, and there are some streamers who are able to do that. Like, most streamers are not, unfortunately. Even some of those that are considered generally successful, right? You have to be successful enough to be able to do everything you want to do, plus giving people the ability to do what they want to do. And now, with that being said, there are now companies like Streamer Square that sometimes they're getting to the point where they can start, doing stuff like that. There's for those who don't know, if you're a writer, if you like to write about streaming things, and if you think that you can put together ideas on paper that are coherent and make sense, there may or may not be positions right here at Streamer Square that might help you out. Jet, what are you doing? My dog's making noises. Are you sick or are you playing with something? Oh, he's playing with his toy. I hear like this like pushing onto something. I was like, is he throwing up? No, he's playing with this toy that doesn't squeak. Dude, okay. My dog's not big, right? Jet, come here. Come here, buddy. There's my cat there too. Come here. He's not big. Look. He's little. No, you gotta stand up. It's not to lay down. He's not big. He's a little guy. Hi. But he destroys squeakers. He's bigger than my cat. He is bigger than my cat, yeah. But he destroys speakers. I mean, sorry, squeakers, not speakers. That would be bad. That would be expensive. No, he destroys squeakers. Mwah. Okay. So anything with the squeaker just gets demolished in like 15-20 minutes. It's ridiculous. So back to I did nice little distraction there. So there's a lot of things we're going to be talking about today. This is like every episode on this show, Dan's Stream of Thought. It's pretty much improv. Pretty much everything we do is improv. In fact, even the topic we were talking about today is kind of improv in the sense that, like, we kind of workshopped it on stream yesterday. We're like, what is something that people want to know that is not too general? Because there's a lot of suggestions come up, and I get this from people who are aspiring to, get really serious with their streams and stuff like that. A lot of general questions come up of like, hey, what are the top 3 things to do or to think about when you're streaming? It's like, maybe this is me being in the business too long, but I couldn't come up with the top 3 things. I would give you like 100 things and be like, I don't know what the top 3 are, because I don't know. Like, there's no like, I almost said there's no book on this, which there literally is, but there's no set way, even if it's written in a book, to say that this is 100% the way to do it no matter what. Because it's all art form, right? Like, you can write a million books to acting, but it doesn't mean any of those are correct for your style of acting or however you want to do it, Somebody's supposed to change the title. Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to do that from the mod menu. I don't think you can. I think I have to go to the different menu. Give me 1 second. Yeah, the show technically hasn't. I mean, it technically has, but it technically also hasn't started. I'll do this in a second. Let's see. I'll intro us and we'll just get going. Let's see. Let us see. Let us see. So, today's gonna be bad habits. Bad habits. We all have them. We all have them. We all do them. Already tried? Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's weird. You can program bots to do it, but you cannot get the mod menu to do it. Anyway, all right. So let's get this thing started. What do you guys say? What do you guys say? Hold on. How long is this gonna take me to render? Give me a second. What was last week's episode? I forget. This actually probably isn't even the right one. Alright, give me a sec. I'm putting together something really quick so that we can record a new episode. I like to warm up too, by the way. I like to warm up and just get the show kind of started before we actually get the show started, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Here we go. There we go. Sorry, it's also kind of hot in here. Jeez, man. I don't want that. Stop that. It's weird because it's been raining here in LA for the last, like, 2 days. Alright, here we go. You guys ready? Let's do this. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Dan's Stream of Thought. I am Dan, aka Dan Otage, aka the guy with the mustache, aka the guy that just doesn't know when the heck to go to sleep. The podcast here is the podcast that decides, hey, what topic are we talking about? Well, let's ask the people. So we did. We asked the people exactly what they wanted to know. And a lot of things, like we were talking about a second ago, before we actually even started the recording, is what are the top 3 things that people want to know? It's like, well, that's my question. What are the top 3 things that you should do while you're not, you know, taking a poop? I don't know. Don't do those things. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't take poops. Poops don't happen. Poops don't happen in this house. We just don't. It's just not a thing. Like, everybody's freaking out about toilet paper in this pandemic of ours, but I don't, because I don't know what you guys are even worried about. I don't know. What is toilet paper used for? Toilet paper is used to, like, wipe your nose when you don't have enough tissue. That's just kind of how it goes. Today we're talking about Bad habits. We all have them. They're kind of like things you poop from. We all have them, and most of them are smelly. No, we're talking about bad habits, and there's a lot of things that happen with bad habits, and quite frankly, there's a lot of things that I think are considered bad habits that aren't necessarily bad habits, and I think I want to get into those as well, because I do want to figure out what people think about when they hear when they see a streamer doing something, or when they hear about a streamer doing something. And I think there's an automatic go-to of like, oh, that's a no-no. Oh, that's a taboo, or that's a thing that doesn't happen here, and we shouldn't do that on this platform and stuff like that. And I think that is often considered a bad habit, when in reality, that is considered a taboo, not necessarily a bad habit. So we're going to talk about bad habits and things that people do on a regular basis. Not people do, maybe you do. Like, everybody has their own bad habits, right? Nobody is perfect, especially on stream. And there may be things that you forget, or there may be things that you just don't think about, or there may be things that you just do normally and you don't really even notice, to the point where if you watch your stream back, which is going to be a big contention, not contention, but it's going to be a big topic of advice for helping your bad habits and for just things in general, to watch your streams. But when you watch your stream back and you sit there and you go, I need to stop doing that. I need to stop blank, blank, blank. I need to stop blank, blank, blank. It could be anything, but those are the things we're talking about. Because it's not like you're doing something that is necessarily considered taboo, like you're maybe talking about another streamer or content creator negatively. Like, that's kind of a taboo. You don't really do that, even if the person necessarily deserves it, or whatever you think the deserving term even means to you. It's usually a taboo just to not talk negatively about other streamers, because, I mean, let's be honest here. What's the point, right? What's the point about talking about another content creator in a negative light? It really does nothing for your channel. It doesn't do anything that brings you any value, but that doesn't matter. We're not talking about those things. We're talking about bad habits, and that is one of my bad habits, honestly, is getting sidetracked in certain situations and certain topics, because in a lot of time, I'm not doing a show like this, right, where we're educating or edutaining, which is a term I learned not that long ago. Edutainment is an actual thing in the biz these days, and that's pretty much what Streamer Square is all about, kind of bringing you the most education that we possibly can, while also not keeping you bored. One of the best versions of edutainment is usually like Bill Nye, if you guys remember Bill Nye. I don't know if anybody felt the same way about Bill Nye that I did, but I thought he was hilarious, and I thought he was, like, even though he was dorky and said things that were, your 5th grade teacher may have chuckled at a couple times, he still provided something, especially with his newest show, Bill Nye Saves the World. He provided something that was more than just a dry Nova explanation about something. Because, like, I love Nova, and they talk about a lot of really cool astronomy things, and astrophysics, and color theory, and photons, and electrons, and all that cool stuff. There's a whole episode on telescopes, that's what it is. On telescopes that I was super into, but at the same exact time, I also fell asleep during some of those. And there's so many things that are like that are super important to get out there, that you sort of have to really rethink how that's said. And edutainment is extremely important. But again, we're going off topic, and again, we were just talking about why I need to stop this bad habit. And this bad habit is, again, not doing shows like this all the time, where it's okay to go on tangents, but a show like this, you gotta be careful with those tangents, right? And a tangent can really take you off base and sort of help you forget what you're talking about. The thing is with this show, and why it's called The Stream of Thought, or Dan's Stream of Thought rather, is because everything kind of just rambles off top of the head, really. There's no show, right? There's no format to this. There's no... Yeah, I think we're right there. There's no show. This is not necessarily a show. This is you listening to me ramble about whatever it is that we come up with that week. And again, how we came up with it this week, this topic of bad habits, was literally asking the people. I was talking with a lot of people in my community, and I was like, hey, there's a lot of you guys that are probably aspiring streamers. In fact, most people that generally are on Twitch have either streamed or want to stream at some point in their life. Now, that can mean many things. That can mean that they just want to do it because they want to see what it's like. That means that they would like to be famous one day, so they really want to learn the ins and outs. It could mean that they just want to be able to provide a piece of entertainment for some friends. It can mean many things. Some people get into right or wrong reasons, but that's irrelevant because, right or wrong reasons could really mean anything. People talk about a lot of things. Hey, if you get into this business for money, you're getting it for the wrong reason, and you're just going to be disappointed, and you're probably not going to do it right. It's like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? That means something to you that may not mean something to somebody else. A lot of advice that goes out there these days is subjective, and I think that's probably one of the biggest problems with advice, especially on platforms where anybody can really speak about something. The coolest thing about Twitter is that there's a limit to how much you can say in a single tweet. So there's a limit to how much somebody has to listen to you, or at least involuntarily can scroll by and say, hey, this is a thing that I heard from you once. Whereas if somebody's watching a stream because they're, into a game that they're liking, and then all of a sudden, hey, I'm listening to something, even talk about something that is interesting to me because, yes, I want to stream one day. Let's hear what this person has to say. And then that person can generally ramble on, and in a lot of ways, and at a lot of times, the streamer that is rambling or ranting, as tends to be the general term these days, doesn't really look at the chat. And doesn't see like, hey, you're off topic, maybe reel it back a little bit, which can be considered one of the bad habits when you're in the middle of a big conversation and you don't look at what people are saying. Granted, at the same time, people do it on purpose so they don't get distracted, which I totally understand. Trust me, I'm somebody that does the same exact thing. But that's kind of the big problem here is there's so many people that are successful that don't necessarily know how to talk about it or don't know why they became successful, which is, I think, the biggest problem. Giving advice about things that they think they know because, well, they're here. And in a lot of ways, they're not inaccurate, right? They're not wrong in the fact that they came up with something and they did something that worked, right? That is absolutely a fact. Their actions led them to a success. And somebody may ask, wait, well, what about the actions of the people that helped them get there? Well, it's like, yeah, there are definitely people that helped them get there. Almost nobody, I would say nobody, not beyond a shadow of a doubt, but pretty much nobody has done any of this, any success on a community-based platform like Twitch or YouTube or any of that by themselves. Some people have done it with YouTube via algorithm, but still that's based on a lot of people behind the scenes attempting to make certain content there. But again, and that's not really not trying to force anybody to be humble or practice humility, but it is something that says that there may be things that you don't notice or don't talk about that got you to a place that you are now. And in a lot of ways, it's hard to see, right? In a lot of ways, it's very difficult to see what gave you these abilities, right? Or what gave you these opportunities. Even somebody like myself, who's hyper aware of the people that support me, I still miss stuff all the time. I still miss things like, hey, you sent in word that you liked my stream, and let's be honest. We can be open about this a little bit. I was partnered here on Twitch not through my applications, right? well, you have to have an application in to become partnered, but I was not partnered through applications, and somebody reviewing my application and saying, hey, we like this person, do that. I didn't even have an application in at the time. I just I made a relationship with somebody for years, right? It took years to cultivate and have like just kind of be around that person, and a couple people actually. And then the two people I had these relationships with, they spoke to each other and was like, oh, hey, I like this person. Maybe they should be doing this. And this other person was like, oh, I like that person too. Maybe I should make that happen for this person. And then that happened. And then it just happened, right? Like, that's just kind of how it went. That's why I got partnered during the month that almost no partnerships happen, right? I got partnered in January, which is the slowest month. January, February, March. Not anymore March, but it used to be. Where there's not really much happening in the way of Twitch revenue or streamer revenue or advertising or any of that. So like to be partnered in January is kind of a fluke. And that happens to be because there are people who did stuff for me. Now, that comes from my hard work as well. It comes from a lot of people's hard work. And one of those things, and one of these bad habits is not recognizing that. We're going to get to that. Trust me, I promise that this isn't a total tangent. One of those things is recognizing, hey, this person did something for you. So try to make it a habit of maybe recognizing that. You know, you don't always have to tell the person, hey, I appreciate you for doing A, B, and C, and then sound robotic. But one of those bad habits tend to come from, hey, I didn't notice this thing happening, even though it was right in front of my face. But it's not a bad habit to just miss those things, right? It is just a bad habit to not pay attention and see if you can find out what happened. And that happens with a lot of things, right? Hey, my title got changed and I wasn't playing under the wrong category for, the last 2 hours because this moderator in chat decided to change the game for me. They didn't say anything, they just kind of did it, and, we're not, I'm not looking like a total dummy by playing under Roblox when I'm, actually under Minecraft. Because, I guess that can be confusing, right? And then, make it a habit of thanking them and making a big, not like huge deal, but a big deal about it in front of people. Because not only does that like lift the morale of your moderators, it actually shows that you're paying attention to certain things, right? Or that, maybe you missed something and you paid attention to how it got fixed, right? So there's also a bad habit I see with a lot of streamers, and I've seen it with myself in the past. I thankfully have, fixed that, not fully, but mostly, which is if a mod or somebody in chat is doing something that you dislike and don't necessarily need to make an example of it, that you just mention it in private to them. And then you talk about the good stuff in public. So a lot of things I learned as, actually, training to be a teacher and being under the mentorship of a professor and stuff like that is to praise in public and to discipline in private. They don't do that in the military, by the way. The military, they do kind of the opposite. They praise in private and they humiliate in public, because the military is all about example and discipline, right? Discipline exists in all categories of everything, but not necessarily in the same way. So, one thing I learned that is extremely useful, a useful skill, is, and it's something that people just don't necessarily recognize inherently, is to, praise in public. But discipline in private, right? And no, that's not dirty or kinky or anything. Not only because there's no need to humiliate somebody or embarrass somebody in a public eye, because, well, what do the other people get out of that? I mean, really, that is the question. What do other people get out of that? Do you think that anybody, and we can go back to like attitudes, streamer attitudes and stuff like that. What do people get out of listening to you say, hey, moderator, you're doing this wrong. Please don't ever do that again. Other than to maybe feel awkward and like, hey, mom and dad are fighting. This is not cool. And this is a habit that a lot of people do have to kind of help think about. And I know I had to do it for a long time. I still, you know, if I'm in a salty mood or something like that, or something just happened on stream, I still make a little comment of like, hey, don't do that. Please don't, like, next time don't do that. Because it's easy, right? It's easy to just say it right then and there instead of taking, you know, a second to go type it in a private message. It's very easy to just do it or write it down. And my thing is, I do things out of convenience because I know I'll forget. But yeah, I mean, I've learned now to take like a quick 3 seconds to type something out. Hey, next time, try not to do it this way. It really helps if you do it this way. It like helps me out more, or whatever it might be. Not only because, but yeah, nobody else is going to get anything out of that. Nobody's going to get edutainment. Nobody's going to get entertainment out of you berating a mod or something like that. But they may, you know, they may want to help you celebrate if you say something good about what a mod just did. Hey, can we get some love in the channel for all the mods that are being fantastic today, or this mod individually who mentioned that, hey, we should, you know, do this. In fact, I won't even mention a mod. I'll just mention somebody in chat right now. Where was it? Oh, right here. Bingo Bob. Is someone supposed to change the title? Look at that. It was a question probably out of curiosity, but it was a question out of like, hey, I'm looking out for you. Show some love for that person, because if they didn't do that, I may have forgot. I don't know if I would have, but I may have. And that's important. But yeah, one of those bad habits is saying something that doesn't need to be said right then and there. You know what I mean? Being able to figure out a webcam and OBS does not mean you're qualified to give advice on a stream. Well, that's the thing, is like, what qualifies people on how to give advice? Because we were just talking about advice and stuff like that, and I'm circling back to people in chat. Even people like Summit 1G, right? I know I'm dropping names and stuff like that, and I'm not going to be talking negatively about that, but does he have a qualification to give people advice on how to stream? Personally, I don't think necessarily he does, based on the fact that he may or may not be one of the biggest streamers on the platform. I personally think that he knows how to give advice on how to do a stream like him, right? And to do a stream that makes sense for his brand or whatever his strategy might be. He may have good advice for general streaming tips, but he may not. And he may talk about things that work specifically for him. But the thing is, what I like about, and the reason I brought him into this conversation is because what I do like about him is he will be very open in the fact that it's like, hey, I know, he'll very much admit, hey, I know how I did things, but I'll tell you right now, things have changed so much that my advice is almost useless because, well, things don't work the same way they did when I was coming up, you know? And he's mentioned that a few times, and I think that he's very modest in that way, and I think that it makes sense. But I mean, that is often a bad habit, is not admitting a bias, if that makes sense. A bias of, I may or may not know what the heck I'm talking about because my situation may or may not be the same or different than yours. And people don't realize that is not an assumed fact all the time to a lot of people who watch any content creator or anybody in the industry in general, right? People often assume that other people assume that something may not work for them. It's like, no. If you're a successful person, or you have any type of success at all, even my level of success, which is not huge, people will listen to me and think, and sometimes keep that word as gospel. And it's like, no. What I'm saying right now is very, very loose and stuff that I think you should listen to. I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't think that, but it may or may not be something that is even close to gonna work for you, you know? Who knows? Who knows if this is something that may even help at all at any point in time? Who knows if this is something that may hurt your channel or hurt your career or anything, right? There's a lot of things that I do that help my career that will most definitely hurt a lot of other careers. I can get away with it because of who I am, right? I mean, hell, just being a man on this platform helps me get away with a lot of things that women probably can't get away from or get away with, right? You can't make a lot of comments because you have all these little boys that don't necessarily understand that they're sexist yet, and just they start saying things like, "Oh, you can't say that. That's wrong." It's like, but they'll watch a guy do it and they're fine with it, you know? So just that in and of itself, there's its own bias that is something that you often have to say out loud because people don't necessarily assume certain things. And this is why, like, I talk about assumptions a lot, because I think it has to do with a lot with my career and my job. There's a lot of people who can keep very broad assumptions and not have to talk about them because they work in an industry where everybody kind of assumes the same thing because, well, they were taught to. They were trained to. They literally went to school for a lot of these assumptions. But in my line of work, in this line of work, where anybody in the entire world could be listening, you kind of have to be a little bit more open about your biases and the things that you assume and the things that you think others assume. Because if you're not, well, somebody's going to make a mistake when they're listening to you. And people are going to make a mistake anyway, right? That doesn't matter. You're not going to get everything out there. You don't need to talk about every little single assumption out there because that's just impossible. It's not going to happen. But to be as open as possible as you possibly can, to be able to do that is important. Hey, Thermal Turnip. Hey, Tank Pig. Hello. Hey, that one Knave. But yeah, it's important. It's important to think about generally others while streaming in general. And I think that is something a lot of people just forget about. It's not that they don't do, and it's not like they do it out of malice to forget, but they just sometimes don't think about it. And I think that is I don't know if it's a bad habit, but I would do my very best to make it a good habit, which is to often think about the other people that may or may not be watching you. And that could go for anything too. One general bad habit, I know we've been talking about like the really, really making of the sausage and really like pulling back the curtain, but let's talk about things that are not just like peeking in the curtain and just watching the little sausage come out the machine and stuff like that. Let's talk about something simple and specific. Wow, I just thought of it and then I forgot about it. We were talking about, God, that was I was so focused on the lead up that I forgot what the heck we were talking about. Something simple that is about bad habits. I guess it was along the same lines, I think. I'll probably think of it in a second. Doesn't really matter. But thinking about the... Oh, that's what it was. It was when you go on break, or when you take a small break, make sure there's something on your screen that says you're on break, right? Because there's often times, and I have this bad habit too sometimes. We have a pretty good break screen. Here's an example, and in fact, this is straight from Stream Elements. And thankfully they make stuff for me sometimes because they're awesome, but you can get something like this and you can make it exactly like this if you want, with a few modifications. Let me see, here's my Be Right Back screen. Be right back, taking a quick break. It's very clear. There's nice giant bold letters there. It says be right back, taking a short break, shows a little, and then I added the credit sequence there. But it shows a lot of things that's happening and it keeps everything going, right? So just having something there and using that, by the way, if you guys want to use that as an example. It's on the stream now for a reason. That way people know what the heck's going on. But you don't even have to do that, right? Obviously you have tools at your disposal that will just make it easy for you. As much as like I'm not sponsored. And this stream is definitely not sponsored by Stream Elements. I think Stream Elements does provide a lot of tools that allow a lot of things to be easy for free, which is cool. But that's the end of that. Just putting up letters like Dan's taking a break. You can just put it in the text file on OBS. Dan's taking a break. That way people don't sit there and go, what's going on? And then assume anything, right? Because again, we're going to go back to this, and we're going to continue to go back to this. Viewers of streams assume so much. And we can see this both in chat and in viewership, right? You can make and you can even make assumptions too. You can make the assumption that people come in and leave almost immediately because you were in the middle of saying two things, and they came in, they saw you weren't saying anything, and they assumed that, oh, this person doesn't really talk much and doesn't know what the heck they're doing, right? It's exactly why people go watch streams with lots of viewers, and why that whole snowball effect kind of just happens, or people being at the top of a directory. One, people don't want to scroll down a directory, but two, if they see a lot of viewers in a channel, they assume that that streamer is making a good show. It's a safe assumption. It's something that you don't really have to worry too much about. It's something you don't have to necessarily think that, well, I'm being duped here, because it's safe, right? It's safe. There's a lot of people watching this. It must be good, right? People talk about a show all the time. Oh, everybody's watching Tiger King. It must be good. That's an incorrect statement. That's an incorrect assumption even. People are watching that because it's strange and provocative and intriguing. Now, does that make a good show? Possibly. I might even say yes. But some people may think that, oh, this is a terrible, terrible show. I hate every part of this, but I can't stop watching either. And it's being watched by everybody else, so I also want to be up to date. All these things tend to be a lot of assumptions. But again, one of the biggest bad habits is assuming things like that. And this goes back to that. This episode should be called Assumptions. This goes back to that. And putting your break words or screen or whatever it might be on the screen is you taking away assumptions of, oh, this person has just left his stream up and is never going to come back. That is an assumption that may or may not happen, or all kinds of things, right? And it'll also go back to attitude too, right? You may have these things available to people, and people may still ask questions like, hey, what game are you playing today? Do you not see it? It's like on the screen. You cannot get away from the fact that it shows what game we're playing. But going back to attitude, they may not know about that, right? So I try to say, hey, if you're ever curious about what game we're playing, it always says on the screen. If you're on mobile, just tap your screen. If you're on PC, it's right below the video. But again, you have to assume that they're assuming, right? And that's a double whammy of a lot of things there. And that becomes dangerous to make too many assumptions, which is why you have to kind of assume that people are assuming, but also stay safe and just cover your bases, right? It's a big thing, is just cover your bases. It's the same reason why my great-grandma watched NASCAR, wanted crashes to happen for the drama. I think that's why a lot of people watch NASCAR. At least that's why a lot of people say they watch NASCAR. I don't know, that's why people watch, isn't Jerry Springer the NASCAR of talk shows? For that reason? They just wanted to see the crashes happen? It's like it's a train wreck about to happen and I can't look away? For the drama? For the gram? It's guaranteed though? Well, yeah, it's scripted, right? But yeah, that doesn't matter to people. It's the same people that's the same thing when people talk about, you know, wrestling's fake, right? Do you ever just want to just backhand a person that says that? If you want to just backhand a person that says, you know, wrestling's fake, right? No, I just think some guy comes out in full gold paint with a star painted on his face for serious matters. No, I think somebody is actually an Undertaker, and he works in a morgue, and thinks he's actually from hell in the Grim Reaper, and he thinks he actually is summoning lightning, because I think it's real. Yeah, that's exactly what I think. You just want to backhand somebody like that? It's like, that's exactly what we're talking about here. People are going to assume things, and people are going to assume everything, really. And you want to do your very best to make sure that assumptions are taken out of the equation, but even if those things are taken out of the equation, somebody will still put them back in. My sister told me wrestling was fake when I was 8 years old, and I legit thought she was stupid and didn't believe her. Doesn't matter. That's exactly it. You shouldn't believe her, especially when you're 8. It's real to you, right? That's all that matters. I watched NASCAR for the right turns. Wait. They don't make right turns. But I guess some of them do, and that's why they crash. When they do like spinouts, it's often in a right turn. NASCAR is legit the best sleep aid in the world. The car noises put me down. I mean, you know, obviously in real life, those cars are really loud, but on a TV, you can make it whatever volume you want. I'd say it's a pretty good white noise. Yeah, for sure. I can see that. What are some other bad habits? So we talk about like attitude on stream and bad habits in that, and I think that's important to think about. You should always be thinking about your attitude. Because one of the things that, and we can even break it down even further, you should always be thinking about how the audience is viewing you, right? Because like we're taught our entire lives that don't worry about what other people think of you, right? And in general, that's true. You shouldn't think about that. But we're on an entertainment platform, and on camera, or not on camera, but our voices on microphone, and people care about what it is that they're viewing, and you have the choice to be whatever you want, and you can be. And I'm not even saying that like you have to change while thinking about what other people think of you, but you should think about it, right? It should always be on your mind of what you are putting out into the world, because you don't want to regret it later, right? It has nothing to do with the fact that, oh, I need to be this type of person because that's what's going to make me famous. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something in the sense that if somebody's watching you or somebody's listening to you, you should be thinking about what they're listening to and what you're putting out, because one, you have full control of it. So, you know, if you say something that you don't mean, well, it's your fault because you had full control over it. But two, you don't want to regret putting something out there that just happened because you weren't thinking about it. It's like, oh man, that was a great opportunity for some really cool and entertaining thing to happen here, but I didn't want to because I was being stubborn, or I didn't want to because, well, I wasn't paying attention to what I was putting out. And that's important, you know? That's important, which is, you know, it goes back to that being exhausting and why it's so difficult to do 8-hour streams. You know, I'm trying to do like 6-hour streams because, well, I think I could be a better entertainer there. But that's kind of the problem with live streaming platforms, is the longer you're on the platform, meaning like the longer your streams are, the more likely your stream is to be discovered. But at the same time, the less likely you can stay entertaining the whole time. So it's another thing that says like, well, it's nice to change up games every now and then, like maybe 2 games a stream, or like split it up, or in the last couple hours of your stream play something that's totally relaxing and chill and stuff like that, because you can stay online, but you don't have to really worry too much about it. But then again, you're still putting on a show, so it doesn't matter what game you're playing, you can still do something. This is the dilemma that almost every streamer goes through, and I know that you're all maybe feeling anxiety by me saying this, and I'm sorry. But we all go through this. Hopefully that helps. Every streamer goes through this. So hopefully that helps bring the anxiety down a little bit, in saying that you're not alone in this. Do sleeping streams? Oh my god, yeah, people do that too. I get it. I get it. I mean, there's a reason that people watch Big Brother After Dark as well. That's probably for the sex, honestly. But nonetheless, people are voyeuristic and not necessarily always in a sexual manner. People just like to watch people sleep sometimes, or They like to feel like there's maybe a companion there. And even now more than ever, it's probably sleeping streams are probably the most popular they're going to be in a very long time, because you're sitting there going, everybody's stuck at home. Might as well just be here at home with everybody, right? I mean, they gotta sleep at some point. Maybe they're not sleeping now, but I am. Might as well stay online, right? It's like, well, so on paper, or at least, I don't know, socially, you can kind of understand why somebody might do a sleeping stream, especially if they're making a lot of money doing it, which some of them are. But again, that's up to you. And I would say make it a good habit of putting out something that you care about. Because if you might become embarrassed 10 years later, it's like, oh dude, people watched me sleep and I may have like scratched my areas and made some weird noises while I was sleeping, and I don't really want that to be on the internet, but it's too late because you made that decision then. Right? Get it with larger streamers because chat entertains itself. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. But that happens anyway, right? It literally has to, I think it literally has to do with the fact that they can stay live on stream for hours on end. And Twitch loves it because, well, they're making a bunch of money with it. And they need a way to keep the platform going, so what are you going to do? And this is where the argument comes in. It's like, well, that's not my Twitch, or that's not what Twitch is about, or the company's greedy because they want to make money off of things that people are doing. It's like, well, everybody makes the choice to do whatever it is that they do on the platform. So if the streamer consents to it, then why shouldn't the platform consent to it? Obviously, you have safety type things and age restrictions and stuff that come into play. Like, there's a reason we can't have porn on stream platforms like Twitch or YouTube, is because, well, there's not a 18 or up age gate, and you don't want to put an 18 or up age gate because you also want 13 and up year olds watching video games and stuff like that, and friendly and family friendly content and stuff like that. And you can't have gates for two different streams necessarily. You can, but not hard gates, because you don't want to split that up and make things too convoluted. The more convoluted and confusing you make a platform, the less viable it is for people to be able to watch it. So again, this is hopefully helping people understand. This is a bad habit too, by the way, which is people talking about stuff and complaining about a platform where they don't necessarily understand what's going on. Because I'll tell you right now, Twitch staff and people who actually make the big decisions, they watch people's streams. They do. Especially if you're applying for partner. They will watch your stream. And if you start saying stuff that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and it's all negative, well, they're probably not going to enjoy that. And that's somebody that they may not want to partner with, because that's somebody they don't want representing their brand. So, bad habit is talking about stuff you don't know about, especially in a negative manner. If it's something that you don't know about and you're talking about maybe in a positive manner, unless it's like Nazism or like, racism and stuff like that, you're usually pretty safe, because you can talk about, hey, I really like the idea of this game. I don't know anything about it, but it looks cool. That's not gonna be looked at badly, right? More than likely. But if you talk about something that, like a game that doesn't look good, and you're like, I hate every part of it. I don't like how it plays. I don't like it. And it's like, well, you never played it before. How would you say that? It's okay. I would say it's okay to say I don't really like the way it looks. But again, a bad habit is being super negative about those things too. Let's take Valorant, for example. I have no interest in Valorant, right? It's Counter-Strike with... It seems like Counter-Strike with abilities and stuff like that, right? I have no interest in it. But I'm not going to go here and say, oh, it sucks and people are just being terrible to each other and trying to milk each other for the same brand and stuff. It's like, I'm not saying that. Not at all am I saying that. Why? Because I don't care about the game. I don't know anything about the game other than what I've seen vaguely from other people's streams. It doesn't matter to me. So I just leave it. It's nothing. It's like if somebody asks me, hey, you gonna play Valorant? Just say, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Not for any big reasons, and not because I think the game's stupid or it looks like a big poo-poo face, but just because I'm not interested in it. And that's pretty much as far as you really need to go. And you don't even need to go that way. You just say no. But that's I would say the optimal level of giving a little bit of information, not going too far, etc. Chat, what are some other bad habits? Because there's tons of bad habits out there. What bad habits do I have? Tons. I was pretty surprised how much it looks like CS. It looks exactly like CS. With some additive things. It's actually a little bit more cartoony because of probably because of the way that they wanted to turn it into people having abilities and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's supposed to too, right? They're going after a specific audience. They're going after people who like that game. Why? Because, well, and personally, I think that market is available. If you notice that, and this is off topic and it's fine, but if you notice that a market is still being tapped and it's an old market and there hasn't been any major updates to said market, that is the perfect opportunity to update that market. Meaning, people are still playing Counter-Strike Go like crazy, and I don't think there's been a new plan for Counter-Strike in a very, very long time, and I'm pretty sure Counter-Strike I've been playing it since I was a kid, but the Counter-Strike Go specifically has been around for ages. So you see that, and you see how popular it still is. Well, it's time to make something new and on top of it. So they did this. What? That's not true at all, Thermal Turnip. It's slander. They're going after people like me who played CS back when it was just a mod. I think they're going for everybody that has ever played Counter-Strike in general. I think it's more than that. Fortnite versus H1 is a case in point on that topic, I think. Not specifically that topic. That's more of going with a trend, right? If you see a trend happening and you want to capitalize on that and create something that goes with that trend, you are going with that, right? You are making something and improving that trend. This is something different. This is where a market is still being tapped, but nothing new is happening, right? Because H1, as much as H1 was like the only thing around for a while, they were still updating that game. They were still creating new things to that game. So that was a market that was continuously being updated, not as rapidly as it was when like PUBG hit, but it was still something that was being updated continuously. And then somebody else came in and said, hey, we want to do this. Hopefully that's how the Tarkov market goes these days. As much as like Tarkov is a really well-made game, I personally think it needs new fresh blood working on something like that. Now, the game's not out yet, but I think that if that game is about to come out and then somebody works on something that comes out a little bit later that is similar with a similar model, I think that's probably going to be the new insurgence of a new type of shooter. Just chugging along. Oh yeah, not booming. Obviously, booming means growing and stuff like that. But I wouldn't even call it chugging along. I would say that it is still successful, and it's a game that's been around for a long, long, long time without many major updates, and that's important. It's robust, voluptuous. Possibly. Now we're talking about video games, which tends to be what we do, isn't it? I know we really didn't talk too much about a ton of bad habits, but I think we talked about the theory and ideology of what makes a bad habit. Because and I thought about this when we talked about this, when we thought about the topic and started brainstorming it, is I don't want to be here sitting talking about, here's top 10 things of what not to do on stream. That was a bad idea. I don't ever want to do that. So I guess this is more of what I wanted this episode to be anyway, which is methodology and ideology behind what makes a bad habit versus what are the bad habits. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Bad habits are relative, right? And bad habits are subjective as well. There's no such thing as a general bad habit, right? Because as much as as much as this is going to sound bad and terrible, it is also true. Somebody may talk about making racist comments on a stream is a bad habit, but they may be doing it to gain the audience of other racists, which would make it good for them, right? So it's all subjective and relative. Best practice is still relative? Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I mean, hold on. That's a little bit more complicated. Best practice could be considered a couple different things. Best practice in a professional's opinion is one thing. And that's subjective. Best practices for what creates the highest level of results, that is more objective and more sometimes circumstantial, which is what makes the variance there. But a lot of the time this is the thing that performs the best. So statistically, this is the best practice, right? And that's not subjective. That is entirely, you have empirical data that talks about the fact that this is not a subjective conversation. This is a objective statistically proven thing. Now, that thing can change in a 24-hour period, but right now it is objectively the best practice to take, right? Because you can have outliers too, right? The best practice to take during a sponsored stream is to stream a game that you know your audience will show up at and enjoy for a couple of hours, right? 2 hours generally. And then play the new game that the company is paying you to play that maybe nobody's heard of yet for 2 to 3 hours, whatever it might be, 1 to 3 hours, I guess. And then do whatever you want after that. But the big best practice thing is to start with the game that people already know and enjoy, because you don't guarantee it, but your statistics go much higher of people showing up and being there. So when you start that sponsored segment of that stream, people will already be there, and if they choose to leave, then they choose to leave, but that's a different situation, right? Sure, but that still assumes that your definition of success matches the norm too. No, it doesn't. So that part specifically, we're talking about objective terms and talking about success within a statistical graph. That is not an assumption of what success means in a statistical graph. Success being subjective is something we talk about in a social setting, right? In a social setting of you're successful because you make a lot of money, or you're successful because you have a lot of fans, or you're successful because a lot of people look up to you. That definitely goes with a norm and who is talking about a norm. But here we're talking about best practices coming to statistical data, right? That's not an assumption. There is no assumption there. That is right there on paper. It's usually, if you're looking at a graph, it details what is success or what this chart means. And you're talking about, well, obviously you want more than less in this graph, or if you're talking about disease, you want less than more. So, right? So this part specifically, I know it's something that it's when you take two terms that mean opposite things in different contexts, you have to really muddy the waters there, but that is, it's complicated, and hopefully that's the explanation that makes the most sense. Seeking validation through numbers is bad streamer habit I've seen in a number of streamers. Again, I mean, subjective, but I mean, I would generally agree with that. Because while on one hand it may be bad for your mental health to say, "Oh, I don't have this number of subs this month." But on the other hand, it may be good for you to pay attention to something like that, because you may think about going to get another job because you cannot pay your bills off of this number of subscribers. Then again, there's also people who are driven by quote-unquote failure, right? So again, that goes a lot of different ways, right? My job is validated as a job because I can make this much money per month, right? Social validation is a different story, but yes, some people may be still healthy looking at it that way because there's no written book in the sense that this is going to hurt you if you're looking for validation this way. But generally, that tends to be true. Again, we're talking about generals versus specifics, right? Commonly unhealthy, that's probably accurate. Information for making decisions is good. Inferring self-worth for those numbers is bad. Again, it depends on how you feel about it too, right? Because in a lot of ways, somebody may feel worthless because how they define worth is through how much money is made, right? Because, well, worth is what? Worth as a definition is so generic and general that it could mean anything, right? So again, this all comes to how each individual defines that word. Validation of self-worth via stream, not so much business-wise. I mean, we're still looping back on the same subject. While I personally agree with all these statements, we're not talking about that, right? We're talking about how individuals think about this. And the reason I'm harping on this so hard is because we need to understand, and I think it's a bad habit, that we all think we think the same, right? This is something that is incredibly important that I think a lot of people miss. We do not all think the same. Now, I think the same as you two talking in chat, but that doesn't mean that there's somebody else out there that thinks the opposite of you and is perfectly fine and healthy that way too. Right? And that's important because that changes the way you speak about something. Doesn't change the way you think about it, changes the way you speak about it and the way you communicate that message. Me sitting here so let's give an example. I personally believe, I agree with you. Validating yourself because of how many followers you have or how many subs you have can lead and will probably lead me to having an unhealthy mental state, right? I will become, sad and down on myself and all these things. But somebody else might not think that. So, what I would do is I would speak about it that way. I would communicate that message that way, saying, hey, I don't know if you feel this way. This is how I feel about it. This is A, B, and C. If you don't feel that way, this is something that blah, blah. But the point is, it is giving you the mental state of mind and frame of mind to be able to be open about your thought process more than just speaking like fact. And this is one thing that I've seen a lot of people do. And I used to do this as a teenager, is you speak as if you know exactly what you're talking about. You may know that you don't know exactly what you're talking about, but when you speak that way, you convey a message that is not entirely accurate to what you're thinking inside your brain, right? And I think this is one of the biggest problems with communication in a general setting, and this has been this way since the dawn of man. People talk about things as if they know it, even if they know in their head that I don't necessarily know this. So literally the phrase, I may not know what I'm talking about, or this may not be entirely accurate, but is an incredibly powerful statement. It's an incredibly powerful statement. And really, you don't think to say something like that unless you're starting to think about other people, right? And starting to think about how other people think of this. That's important. That's extremely important. I cannot drive that home further. It is extremely important to think about how other people are thinking about what you're saying, because it will change the way you speak, and it will help people it will allow people to understand you maybe a little bit better. It's called the art of bullshitting? No, it isn't. It really isn't. It really isn't. That is not, no. Absolutely not. But the point is, this comes from, I don't know if it's necessarily compassion, because that's more taking the feelings of other people in mind, and I don't think that's necessary for this conversation. But thinking about What is the word? What is the word I'm looking for? Katie? Do you know the word I'm looking for?
No.
When thinking of, like, just being mindful of how others think?
Conscientious?
I guess conscientious. Conscientious of other people's thoughts. And... because it's not compassion, that's feeling. I guess it's just being mindful and having the presence of the room. I think that, I mean, this is all the same subject we've been talking about from the beginning, but going back to reading the room and feeling everybody out and kind of, you know, saying, hey, this is what somebody may assume here, somebody may assume there, but just being general about it instead of taking individual cases in mind. When you think about it that way, you may be able to let more people be at ease when you speak about it. Appearing knowledgeable to others when you're not. Right, but that's not what I was, no, I get you. You're not fully, I got it. But yes, no, I'm not talking about people doing that on purpose. And this is why I think it's a bad habit. And we need to be very specific in the word habit, because habit implies that you don't do it on purpose, right? When people talk about things like they know it on purpose, yeah, that's a whole different story. Don't even get me started there. But when people talk about things on accident like they know it, because this is, again, I used to do this on accident. This is how I know this. Talk about things in like as so I guess the word is matter of factly, like instead of saying, did you know, or this is what I've noticed, that I've noticed a lot of people doing this, right? Instead of that, some people who speak matter of factly might say, people do this. Do you hear the difference? I've noticed people doing this a lot, or people do this. One is a matter of fact, the other one is an observation. It's extremely important to delineate the two, because one implies... I'm gonna think of the word. I'm going to. I'm not gonna think of the word. But one implies being able to understand that somebody may feel a different way than you do, and may have observed something different than you, may have a different experience than something you do. The other one just says, I'm right, and assumes that you'll know to correct me, right? Again, more assumption. Empathy. That's still feeling, but I think that's the word I was thinking of. But yes, same idea. Yes, precisely, same idea. But I am right? What do you mean you are right? Empathy or just not being a sociopath? Well, yeah, I mean... Again, we're talking about something that happens... I guess sociopathy is on accident too, but... That's why I speak matter of fact, because I am right. Uh-huh. Having confidence in being right is different than just straight up being arrogant. Right?
Yes. But, okay.
Oh,
You're saying...
okay, she's talking.
Well, sorry. I mean to say...
No, you can talk. It's just, people gotta listen.
You're saying that somebody who speaks matter-of-factly is displaying that they are unopen to other people's interpretations.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people who speak matter-of-factly sound like they're unopen to it.
So that's what I just said.
No.
I said they are displaying that they are not
Again.
receptive.
Oh, I missed displaying. I'm sorry. Yes.
But they could be receptive to it. The issue is that other people don't necessarily know that because of the way that they say things.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And that's important.
Boo.
What do you mean boo? Why boo? Is that not important?
It's important. it's a personality trait, not necessarily everyone should just be speaking to each other as if, you know, we're all cognizant that there are different opinions, because number one, that's a given. Everything is like subjective.
Well, you say that as an intelligent human being. Remember, remember everything we talked about today, which is things should be assumed by lots of people, and saying that if I say something, it should be assumed that I have the possibility of being wrong, right?
Yes.
But not everybody hears it that way, and if nobody hears it that way, then people don't necessarily think that way. It's important to not necessarily accept and fully like adhere to their notions, but as an entertainer in front of a bunch of people that may or may not be thinking the same way. Because remember the context of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're talking about being a streamer and being in the gaming industry. As a person, a human being, yeah, you don't have to assume those things. If they don't assume them and you just go on with the conversation, then great. But you're not talking to a mass audience, right?
Right.
You're talking to individuals in time, and you have that context to be able to work itself out. So, in your circumstances, for the most part, you can assume those things. Why? Because you can more than likely get away with it, and two, the people that you work with or talk to are more than likely going to assume the same things. Or at least assume that you may be wrong. But we're talking about an audience that, hell, there's lots of people who have been watching me for years that have never spoken to my channel.
Yeah. There is also the danger that if you do end up cultivating a chat that is willing to call you out, that you won't be respected, and then people won't.
I also believe that's how you handle it. It's in how you handle that.
Yeah. But I just mean, I feel like that could snowball. So if you're, as long as you're presenting yourself how you're explaining you should be, I think that helps people respect and acknowledge you as somebody who they would feel comfortable around. Whereas,
but can you not create that comfort with saying, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I was wrong there, so let's correct that?
I think it's a different type of comfort.
Sure, but also remember, everybody is silently judging you. While a lot of people may not be vocal about it, they may still be judging you. Or they will, like it's guaranteed. People just, they can't, human beings are not absent of judgment.
Yes, but that's with everything you do. It doesn't matter what you're doing, people are judging you for it.
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying. So with that in mind, you can't just sit there and say, well, if nobody's talking about it or calling me out on it, then I will be respected and felt more comfortable around, because people are still doing that on their own anyway. That's the thought process. That's like the background of behind what you're talking about, isn't it?
No, I'm saying in order to make a channel work where you are being assertive instead of being agreeable and amenable like you're talking about, people would have to be comfortable calling you out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had cultivated that culture in your chat, I'm saying
it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
Okay.
Because it can always be asking the question. And that you may see that as calling you out. Yeah, definitely. You can say it as, hey, are you sure about this fact? Do you think that this is a correct fact? Right, but not everybody sees it that way. A lot of people should, and that is technically a call out. But that creates more conversation, and I think that creates a comfort as well, versus just saying, no, you're wrong in that.
Well, yeah.
Right? So what, okay, can you explain the two different comforts you're talking about here?
One is more like a chat is taking care of the streamer, and so they feel
Explain that further, please. What does that mean?
So the streamer is wildin' and just fucking out there and doing whatever they want, and chat.
This
sees
is why Katie has to have an 18 plus filter
It's
on
true.
when she
I'm very
streams, by the way.
sorry. And chat feels either the obligation or the entertainment value in telling them that they need to chill out, or that they're wrong, or that, you know, there's a better way to do things. Whereas what you're talking about is where the entertainer is the one doing that for chat, and that's what we see most of the time. I think is chat is crazy and weird and says stupid things, and then the entertainer is like, well, hold on.
So you're talking about it as more of a like a mentor type figure, teacher type figure is what is you're talking about what brings people comfort versus somebody being more like them.
Yes. Yeah, I don't really see it as.
But wouldn't you also say that comfort comes from like being down to earth, which is literally not being all knowing in a lot of ways, or at least acting like you're all knowing?
Comfort for me, I don't know. In general, sure. I'm sure people find it comforting that somebody doesn't see themselves as the be all end all. But comfort for me is market intelligence. Not necessarily that they know that, or that they're saying that they are more intelligent than other people, but if they have that level of intelligence, that makes me comfortable. So if they're displaying that.
But what if they're displaying that their level of intelligence says that I'm open to learning new things, I just don't happen to know that thing yet?
That's fine. But if they're saying things in a very reserved way, without confidence.
Oh, I'm not talking about not confidence, though.
Well,
confidence is important here.
You're saying the way that. So the two phrasings is what I'm saying. So one is matter of fact, and one is, well, this is what I've observed.
But you can show confidence in both. The first one is arrogance, which is different.
I disagree. I don't think it is. I think because of the way I interpret those statements that you consider to be arrogant.
Well, okay. Again, not everything has to be said with question or lack of confidence and stuff like that. If you know something as a fact without reasonable doubt, and you know that more than likely if somebody calls you out, you have stuff to back that up. Yeah, speak in matter of fact. Sure.
Well, I don't know. Nobody can know anything for sure.
No, but again, you can have confidence in both. What I'm saying here is you can have confidence in both ways, right? You can have confidence in the way that we're talking about now, in saying this may have changed by now, right? And saying this used to be a fact. It may have changed by now because of, circumstances have changed, whatnot. But this is what I understand to be a thing. That's showing confidence. It may not show the confidence you're talking about, but I think the confidence you're talking about is still arrogance.
I don't know. I mean, I do like characters like Kylo Ren, so maybe I just like arrogance.
And Kylo Ren, while I like him as well, he is arrogant. He's an arrogant butthole. But yeah, that's less assertion and more aggressive statement, aggressive claim to something, which I think is an important delineation. Everybody feels what I know, that they're wrong. Yes. What is the thing? I'm not wrong, or it's like I'm not wrong. I'm just letting you believe you're right. There's something like that. There's like these stupid T-shirts you see at like Disneyland and stuff like that of the kid that obviously thinks he's the smartest in the family. And it's usually a he, by the way. Well, I take that back. It's not usually a he. It's neither. It's both. Both genders tend to go those ways.
My parents would have bought me shirts like that.
Yeah. My boss accuses me of speaking that way. It's frustrating because I'm open to having people change my mind, and I recognize that I'm probably wrong a lot of the time. But I state things in a way that is strong. Yes, Same. That's how I was. Now I still speak that way sometimes. But that's definitely how I was all the time. In fact, like, I'm pretty sure that's why I have exes that just did stuff that to spite me, because that's how they felt. I just would speak with so much conviction that that it would piss them off. But yeah, that's a lot of, and I didn't learn a lot of this stuff until like my senior year in college, where I was like, dude, you need to stop speaking like that because it's just getting you in trouble, right? And that may be a motivation for a lot of people. You're just getting in trouble because of the way you're speaking, not the way you're feeling. Because people talk about this all the time, and I've talked about this before too, especially in relationships, where it's like, intention is everything. It's like, but it isn't. It's not everything. It's most of it, but it's not everything. The action you take because of that intention tends to be a big part of it. And this is exactly why. If you speak with such conviction all the time, there's a couple things. One, people start to think you're just, rude, and they don't want to talk to you anymore. But two, you may lose credibility too, right? Because what's gonna make people feel like you're a pretty smart person? If you say something wrong, but when you led up to that, you said that you possibly could be wrong, and showing that you have knowledge behind what the heck you're talking about. Or you said something wrong, but you said it with such confidence that somebody's just gonna go, "Oh, that person's actually dumb," right? Like, what's gonna make more sense to having somebody think that they're intelligent, or somebody else might be intelligent? But this is the communication side of things. This is you communicating with your audience in more than just sending a verbal message. Nonverbals are a whole, like, I spent an entire year talking about nonverbals. It's so important. Nonverbals go from hand gestures to speech patterns, because while it's part of speech patterns and noises are technically nonverbals, because they're not the words that are being said. It's the way, the way you say something is nonverbal. The lack of action is nonverbal. So, like, talking about things and then you not saying anything about it, that sends a message still. That is still part of the message behind what it is that you're saying, more than just that. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Welcome. I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Inflection and tone are huge parts of conversation. They are in my opinion, as a communication junior scholar here, they are the biggest part of conversation. Because in a lot of ways, you can say some pretty nasty stuff in the nicest way possible. And I don't just mean inflection, but the tone in which you use the words, right? It's not even just, because tone comes from the words you choose too, right? And that's, I could probably make an argument for that being nonverbal, but I think people will probably turn that to verbal. The words you choose to change the meaning of and framing of what you're talking about it's important. It's more important than ever, and we see this in politics all the time. In fact, this might be the art of politics, is changing what you're saying to have the understanding, while somebody could say exactly somebody can say a completely different thing but have the same meaning. Like, we're gonna kill all the people ever, versus we're gonna not save all the people ever, right? Like, obviously that's a bad example, and that's a very blown out term, but like, one sounds better than the other just right off the bat there. Fine line between constructive and patronizing is the best example I can think of. Yeah. That's very much what we were talking about with praising and disciplining as well, right? When it comes to like mods and stuff like that, disciplining in private and praising in public is important for things like constructive and patronizing. It's just, be constructive Outside of mods and talking about like other gamers and stuff, be constructive on stream and in front of people. If you're gonna be patronizing, or at least maybe a different term, maybe less constructive and more, I don't know, I guess aggressive, do that in private. Because while I don't think that should happen, it's up to you, it may save you in a later circumstance, or maybe it may sound like that, but because somebody only heard half the conversation, because that's important too. If you are doing something and saying something and there's a long explanation to it, be cognizant of that because of how the platform works. People come in and out of conversations all the time. We saw this literally 5 minutes ago. People come in and out of conversations all the time, so be cognizant of what it sounds like in the middle, which is, you may ask, Dan, why do you repeat yourself so much? There's 2 reasons for that. 1, I get myself back on track, but 2, people may be coming in and out of a conversation, and hopefully that's to help keep people stay in tone with it. Obviously that doesn't help when you're having a one-on-one conversation. It just becomes distracting, I know, but when you're on stream and you're entertaining a bunch of people, you want to be pay attention to that. Such a subtle difference in tone, vocalization. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. Sarcasm is the key to that tone and vocalization. I mean, tone and vocalization makes sarcasm not sarcasm too. Which is what a lot of people, I think. We'll have another conversation about chattering too, especially if you're a streamer trying to network with another streamer. And the familiarity that you use in your tone of speech and stuff like that. People talk a lot about, you guys may hate this, but people talk a lot about how it's impossible to convey tone in text. And I sit there and I just shake my head and I'm like, it is not even close to impossible. There are so many things you can do when you type in a chat or type in text that can convey tone incredibly well, that people just don't do. But then, obviously that comes from my education too. Cognizant, like, to be aware and understanding of something. It's impossible for people to overlaying their own tone over yours. I think that is inaccurate. That is my point there. I think that is inaccurate. Because inherently, people will put their own tone on it, but they do that because you haven't given them a tone to listen to. We'll get into this in a different conversation, but that is the basis of what to think about. Give them a tone to listen to it in. Give them a tone to believe in and to think about and to read it in. Because if you don't, yes, they will put their tone on it. But that's because you haven't given them a tone. It's like playing a game without a story involved, right? You don't know why you're playing the game. You're making up your own story in it because there's no other story to put in there. It's like playing Skyrim and not doing any of the quests, just running around doing whatever you want, right? But if you do the quests, you have now a context and a representation of what the devs have wanted from this, right? It is something that you have to make effort for. And I think a lot of people don't, it's not that they don't want to, they don't know how to. And this is communication stuff that I really wish they would teach in high school, but they don't. And it really pisses me off. It doesn't piss me off, sorry, that's the incorrect verbiage. It's really frustrating. These communicative lessons are taught in general education a lot in college. Not all the time, but a lot in college. And 1, people are too busy partying most of the time to really pay attention to it. Or 2, it's too late. And people already know they already know how they speak, right? In high school, it may even be too late. We might want to put that in middle school. But again, this is something that people aren't taught. Tone and inflection and context and verbal, nonverbal, and noise, and there's just a lot of things that aren't taught early on in people's lives that I think would unequivocally change the world. And I don't mean that as like an overdramatic thing. I think that is completely as dramatic as it needs to be. It would change the world if we taught this at a younger age, right? If we taught people how to speak with one another not write your essays and stuff like that. Obviously, writing essays and developing linguistic tones in text is important, but so much have people not, in the education system, not paid attention to how much people talk to each other and how much people argue with each other based on their communication and not on the actual facts they're arguing with. That should be taught. I mean, think about it. How many times have you argued with somebody for hours and then realized that you actually agree, you just weren't conveying the message that you agree with each other? How many of you have done that? I know that I've done that like millions of times. Now, even as somebody who is educated in communication, you would think that I'd pick up on a lot of these things. But again, if we don't have like a similar education, we're not going to understand each other. That's why back in the day, writing etiquette was a thing. No, that's different. Again, that's different. We still have writing etiquette, but it's different. It's different. That's a completely different thing. It's important. Yes, that is still important, but that is not the same. It's like my entire relationship with Lucid Fox. Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to come down to a lot of work that a chatter has to do, which is, sometimes it sounds like it's unfair to ask of a chatter. Somebody in chat, that's not saying like, that's not a status thing, that's just somebody in chat versus somebody on screen or in Discord. It takes a little bit more work from a chatter to convey what they want to convey than it does for the streamer to understand that, right? I can try to understand you as much as I possibly can, but what is that going to require? That's going to require a lot of questions from me, which is going to require a lot of me remembering the conversation while having a conversation with everybody else in chat. So if you want to be understood as a chatter, it's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it is up to you to provide that tone in your text, in the text that you write in the chat. So emotes are huge. Emotes are really big, as long as you're not using them sarcastically, because for some reason, people use emotes that are meant to be for sarcastic reasons sarcastically, so it's like a double negative in a lot of ways. But if you use emotes like they're supposed to be used, like with a smiley face or sad face, so use simple ones. Sad face, smiley face, thumbs up, thumbs down, sad, like angry face, whatever it might be. That's the reason emoticons were invented, was to portray emotions through text without having to have this long explanation as to what the heck feeling you're feeling when you're typing this. But there's also work behind, hey, I may not know this, but you may want to go down that hole. Or, hey, I don't want to spoil anything, but you may want to go down that hole. I don't know what I'm thinking about, like, going down a hole for. It's weird. But, again, it is more than just the streamer's job. It's more than just the streamer's job to have the idea of what is happening between two people. It is often up to both parties. Actually, it's always up to both parties to understand each other. And that becomes important. Just let me feel my feelings. I just need to feel. I understand that 100%. I fully understand that. I will let you feel your feelings. In fact, I will let you feel your feelings all the way up to next week, because we are way over our time. Granted, we don't really have a time stop because there's no show after this. It's just my sanity and my energy, and probably I want to go back to sleep, to be honest, because I slept very little. But thank you guys so much for watching and chatting with me. This is an extremely interactive and cool show that we did. Again, this is all improv. This is something that I do not feel like I want to change as part of the show. This is probably the best part of the show. Like, yeah, we can do a programmed type show every week, but personally, I'm better off the cuff. I think Twitch is just made to be off the cuff. I can script something if I want to do something for YouTube specifically, even if this goes on YouTube. I want to do something specifically for YouTube, I'll script it. We can loosely script stuff like that, but for the most part, we just throw a topic up there. And if you want to talk about something, we're just going to talk about it. And who knows? We may not talk about it at all. Like, in fact, most of what we talked about today is loosely tied to the subject of bad habits. we talked about a lot of things, and I hope this was a good episode for you. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, but it's more reason to listen to every episode if you haven't already. There's all kinds of things we talk about that may or may not be tied to the subject at hand. So there may be something that the subject is not interesting to you, or not interesting to you, but you find something within the episode that is interesting to you. So go through and listen to those. If you have any questions or any suggestions in topics, legitimately, really, I need those suggestions. Go to discord.gg/streamersquare. Or mention them to me on Twitter, or DM them to me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, pretty much everywhere at Danotage. Actually, not even pretty much, actually everywhere at Danotage. DANOTAGE. Follow me, hang out with me. It's not. I'm not looking for more follower numbers. I literally want you to be up to date with what we're doing. So come by, ask questions, help me, help you, help us create a platform of conversation and education to each other right here on the internet. Because I do not believe I'm an educator because I'm smarter than everyone. I believe I'm an educator because I can bring up things that everybody can teach each other about, right? I'm a cultivator of education rather than an educator itself. So hopefully we can all come together and be better that way. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will be live on my stream here in 4 or 5 hours. I'm going to go try to rest and get some food and stuff like that. So if you have anything you'd like to add, please do that in Discord or Twitter. And I'll see you guys next week, okay? Remember to stay positive, play more video games, and read more comics. Please enjoy yourselves and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye, everybody. See ya. Bye now. Bye.